so much of what occurs with good sleep or restorative sleep is a healing, a self-healing of the body. Interestingly, when you're sleeping, about more than 90% of the energy expenditures during sleep is spent on detoxification processes of getting the body ready for activity the following day. And so there's this interesting relationship between toxic burden, inability to detox, general health, and sleep, which it's too complex to spend a lot of time on it, but it is worth at least mentioning. Now, today I have an hour. I'll go longer if people are interested, but I'm going to talk a bit. Then I'm going to have Carrie Connell, who is our herbalist, and talk about the herbal therapies we use for sleep. And then I'm going to talk about a little bit more about what I really think in many ways are the, I don't want to say most important, but extraordinarily important, because I think in the end, if people want to sort of have sleep be automatic, as it may have been once in our lives, you know, because we were active and we put our heads on the pillow and we woke up the next day and that was it. But it isn't that. It requires some cultivation and effort and continued effort, like any other activity of our lives, whether it's physical activity or ability to perform certain tasks or developing a skill, etc. But I'll just go through the first parts of this. Go ahead. So you never think of it as a problem until you have lost the ability to sleep deeply and awaken refreshed. Next. You know, we have this ridiculous desire to feel awake, energetic, and vital at all times. We want our sleep to be brief but effective, and we want our doctors or other healthcare practitioners to prescribe something that won't take too much effort or cost too much to fix it. Not going to happen. Next. And we've built a technology of diagnosis and treatment that is an estimated direct cost of $42 billion in 2009, and includes the cost of visiting doctors and other healthcare providers' prescriptions and non-prescription medications. Next. And the cost of insomnia to employers is that there's a 60% higher mean total healthcare cost, twice the level of absenteeism, 8 times the amount of work-related accidents, reduced physical ability and productivity, higher cost of disability and workers' comp, and increased incidences of depression, cognitive impairment, and anxiety. Next. And to the payers, the insurance companies who we all worry about making enough money, it's very expensive. The cost is $1,253 of healthcare expense per year in younger adults and $1,143 in older adults. Twice the amount of physician office visits, 3 times the amount of prescription meds, hospitalized twice as often, 60% higher mean total health service costs, and more emergency room visits. Next. And so you could think of insomnia as an inadequate quantity or quality of sleep with the consequences of daytime fatigue. I, of course, have kept the room a little warm and dark, so we will make our diagnosis. Next. You could sleep, but no snoring. The pattern of insomnia may vary from individual to individual, and individuals may experience some or all of the common problems. Next. And they include difficulty in initiating sleep, difficulty in maintaining sleep, awakening too early, or the experience of non-restorative sleep. You don't feel well rested when you get up. Next. And the amount of sleep required for good health is between 7 to 8 hours per night. Some individuals will feel well rested with 5 hours, while others really may require up to 10 to feel refreshed and energetic throughout the day. And everyone's a bit different. And the correct amount of sleep may vary with factors such as the season. So often in the winter months you need a little bit more sleep, illness and/or stress. And the appropriate amount of sleep is the amount that allows you to awake and refreshed and function throughout the day without excessive drowsiness and with good concentration. But you know, again, that's almost pushing it too much, because probably in the course of the day we should all be able to withdraw and be quiet, maybe nap if we want to. The idea that we should be constantly on focus all of our waking hours is not realistic. And that, you know, and unfortunately results in expectations that then lead to a variety of drug therapies that maybe aren't always necessary. Next. So some of this we're going to try to, these are sleep disorders that can be addressed by behavioral therapies. And the behavioral therapies really are phenomenally important and are often overlooked. People mostly, in my practice, you know, they want me to give them a pill or make a suggestion, which I do because, you know, I haven't until now had great access to behaviorists, but fortunately there's some new folks in the area that I think will be very effective for patients. Next. Adjustment sleep disorders. This is typically a problem of difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep brought on by a new stress, such as a loss of a job or family illness. Generally, it's self-limiting. When the situation persists, the problem can become chronic and then interfere with general health. But almost all of us have had, you know, some untoward event to ourselves or our family where this was an issue. Next. And then sleep state misperception is a condition where the individual believes they have a problem when they do not. And often for such people, reassurance is helpful. Like they may feel fine all day but think they don't sleep enough. And I haven't seen much of that, but maybe I haven't asked enough. Next. Psychophysiological insomnia is a type of sleep disorder that refers to a learned association between the attempt to sleep and a physical or mental symptom that prevents the sleep. So a lot of people will lie down and initially develop a cardiac awareness where they'll feel a strong heartbeat, which becomes then alarming to them, and then they have difficulty sleeping. That's a very typical one. In a sense, the individual psychs themselves out of a good night's sleep. Behavioral therapies can be very, very effective in correcting that problem. Next. And sleep deprivation, which is a very common problem in our society, you know, where people just can't put themselves down, and we accumulate it, and it just creates an increasing adverse effect on our general well-being and health. And then, if you're like me, you know, from my medical school days, I started with caffeine and I've never stopped. The treatment is really common sense, you know, and plan a peaceful evening and get to bed at a reasonable time. Next. You know, now you have an iPad, so, you know, you try to read on the iPad, but what if all of a sudden maybe you're going to, you know, I don't do this, but people could be all of a sudden playing Angry Birds, and of course you're not going to go to sleep. And now these are sleep disorders related to medical or psychiatric conditions. Next. So every organ of the body, when it's not working well, can result in sleep disturbance. But for many people, you know, people who develop congestive heart failure, this can be a big problem because when they lie down, there's more fluid that can accumulate in their lungs. They experience shortness of breath, and it can be very difficult. I have, unfortunately, patients who have to sleep sitting up in a chair. Same with the respiratory illnesses like asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or just a chronic stuffy nose. And stomach problems, reflux esophagitis is a classic one, of which there's a big industry. Irritable bowel syndrome, though, is often an issue where people just get gas and bloating and feel uncomfortable.